The 2021 Connecticut legislative session came to a close on June 9, 2021. In the final hours of the session, lawmakers passed a state budget with bipartisan support. There was a decision to go into overtime to tackle Sb1118, which would legalize recreational marijuana for adults in a special session. On the afternoon of June 22nd, Governor Lamont signed the legislation and regulation of the adult use of cannabis in the state of Connecticut. The most important provisions of the bill, which include possession of cannabis among adults age 21 and over, will be legal in Connecticut beginning July 1st. Adults cannot have more than 1.5 ounces of cannabis on their person and no more than 5 ounces in their homes or locked in their car trunk or glove box. For those with charges of possession of 4 ounces or less before January 1st, 2000, or from October 1st, 2015 through June 30th, 2021, both can petition the court starting on July 1st, 2022 to have their criminal records erased. Those with the same charge from January 1st, 2000 through September 30th, 2015 will have their records automatically erased on January 1st, 2023. The law implements marketplace requirements under which at least half of all initial licenses are reserved for social equity applicants, targeting those communities that have been most negatively impacted by the war on drugs. The Social Equity Council, which is created by this legislation, will launch programs and supports for social equity applicants in the cannabis market. The sale, manufacture, and cultivation of cannabis aside from homegrown requires a license from the state. Portions of the revenue obtained from retail sales of cannabis will be directed to support substance misuse prevention, treatment and recovery services through the creation of the Prevention and Recovery Services Fund. Connecticut was a state where Black people were 4 times more likely to be arrested for marijuana possession, with New London County having the highest racial disparity in the state. And around a quarter of Connecticut's incarcerated population are still behind the walls because of drug charges. The bill follows a trend established within the past decade of 18 states and Washington, D.C., who have legalized recreational marijuana as the generational war on drug continues. We believe we need further measures to overturn drug-related convictions and release incarcerated people who were criminalized by punitive drug policies. Only when decriminalization goes hand in hand with decarceration can we begin to relieve our communities and loved ones on the inside for the racist war on drugs. Sb1019 was also passed by the House and Senate. For those convicted of misdemeanors and Class D-E felonies, if there is no other conviction for 7 years or 10 years, depending on the charges, the bill would erase your record. The bill also seeks to ban discrimination based on those prior records. This bill, while impacting many throughout the state who fall under its criteria, unfortunately still reinforces this boundary between violent and nonviolent. When we know so many of our loved ones convicted of violent crimes have been institutionally disenfranchised and oppressed by criminalization and dehumanization. They deserve a chance to have their records expunged and to be freed, too. A couple more bills were signed into law this legislative session. Sb6594 was passed by the House and Senate and signed by the governor. One part of Sb6594 impacts the process for applying for a sentence modification. Those who went to trial or received 7 years or less in a plea no longer need to go through prosecutors in submitting for a sentence modification. Yet, if the judge holds a hearing and the modification is denied, you cannot apply for 5 years. This remains unjust and punitive practice that reinforces the carceral punishment system, not dismantle it. The special legislation session created an opportunity for several other bills impacting our people on the inside to be passed, yet many were not. Listening to the following review of legislation that was not passed this past legislation session and still require our sustained effort to push through. Sb1059. Sb1059 would end the use of isolated confinement for all incarcerated people, except in temporary emergency situations, and create a correction ombuds to provide oversight for the Connecticut Department of Correction. This bill is waiting on Governor Lamont's signature after passing the state Senate on Friday and the House of Representatives late on the night of Juneteenth. Sb978 would extend parole eligibility for those who were under 21 when brought into the criminal system and received sentences of more than 10 years. Our communities organized powerfully to push the bill forward. The bill was raised out of the Judiciary Committee of the Senate, but was not passed by the Senate nor the House. SB 1058 focuses on changing the standard for compassionate release for those who have completed half of their sentences. The standard would change from be physically incapable of presenting a risk of danger to society to present a significantly reduced risk of danger to society. The change would help folks on the inside better argue for their eligibility. Both SB 1058 and SB 978 would have directly created pathways for release for those inside, but were both neglected by legislators who purport to have regard for the needs and lives of incarcerated people and our families. On Wednesday, June 16th, Connecticut was on its way to becoming the first state in the nation to provide free phone calls to incarcerated people and their loved ones. The passage ends a 3-year battle where advocates repeatedly pointed out that families of the incarcerated loved ones have been paying a 68% state commission on all in-state calls, totaling $12.8 million annually. In light of this significant reform, co-director of Connecticut Bail Fund, J.O. Richardson, stated, "Connecticut has benefited far too long from the pain and suffering people were forced to endure at the expense of having to pay to stay connected with their loved ones inside. This pain and suffering contributes to generational trauma that plagues our communities, something that is always overlooked. With the passing of this bill, the exploited voices of our community are starting to be heard and acknowledged. The law Lamont signed Wednesday makes the calls for both incarcerated youth and adults free as of October 1st, 2022. The law also stipulates that the State Department of Correction can't reduce the number of in-person visits to inmates because calls are now free. The budget implementer that was passed Thursday will make the calls free as of July 1st, 2022, and require each inmate to receive 90 minutes of phone time a day if they so choose.